Our next guest is author and broadcaster Esther Krakue. Esther, good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's, of course, begin with Harry's case against the Mirror Group. How do you think he fared on the stand this week? What were the key takeaways?
Well, Harry's performance on the stand was actually quite weak, I would say, because he really had to admit a lot of the underlying weaknesses in the case that he's presented against the MGN group. Now, it's important to remember that Harry is one of 100 other people that have brought this case against the MGN. But what he's basically saying is that the MGN has, between 1991 and 2011, has engaged in unlawful activities to try and get information about his life, including phone hacking, which is the main bulk of this case. Now, the court is only hearing 33 stories in that time period, but he and effectively the other people suing MGN are trying to prove that. Now, in his cross-interrogation by Andrew Green, the barrister for the MGN group, he really had to admit that a lot of the sources that he said that were basically what the newspapers used to kind of create stories about him were actually from other newspapers. So he really didn't understand how the media worked, and I don't think he was briefed very well. So, for example, when the barrister was grilling him about some of the stories that he claims were products of phone hacking, he had to admit that actually those stories had been published by other newspapers, days prior, and that's where they got the information from. Or the fact sometimes the palace released the information themselves and Prince Harry wasn't aware of it, or the fact that it was just sources and friends or people close to Prince Harry, and that's the difficulty in this particular case, actually proving phone hacking, which Prince Harry clearly has not done. And in many instances, he said, that's what we're here to find out. I don't know how you can really bring a case against someone if you don't have any hard evidence. I think he assumed that because of the number of people that are also suing the MGN group, he would have a stronger case or be able to at least prove to the judge that some unlawful activity has gone on. But he didn't have the comfort of being in Oprah's living room. He was being interviewed by a very seasoned barrister who made him look like a lot of the allegations that he was bringing against the MGN group was just based on pure speculation and Harry's paranoia and his disdain for the media, which he hasn't shied away from.
Well, that's it. It lacked a basis. It lacked any evidence. And you're right, it was simply based on pure speculation. So whether or not he wins or not, I guess, remains to be seen. But what has been the reaction to this case in the UK? Do people feel sorry for Harry, or are they sick of his complaining?
I think most people are actually quite shocked because he actually missed the first day of the trial because he was celebrating his daughter Lilibet's second birthday. And the judge was very not amused by that because he felt it was just not the proper thing to do. But people are shocked mainly because of the fact that he could actually be on the stand and say that he's actually there to find out whether, a lot of these stories were as a result of phone hacking, when he's brought the case saying that you have engaged in phone hacking and unlawful conduct in sourcing this information. Most people are concerned by how much it costs. Obviously, this is a civil case, so he's footing the bill. But most people just cannot believe that, this is even being entertained by a court when the evidence is so flimsy. I mean, for him to say that, a particular news story was as a result of phone hacking when it was literally published days before in another competing newspaper is completely unprofessional, and it's really quite shocking. I think there's a certain level of delusion that I suspect was what drove Prince Harry to do this, and the other, people suing the MGN group, because I've really never heard of a court case being brought forward with not a shred of evidence. It's incredible.
Oh, look, it really is incredible. And what's also incredible is that the theatre of this whole trial, I guess, was brought to life by Sky UK and GB News this week. They hired actors to play Prince Harry to reenact these court proceedings, which was great. As a viewer, you want to be able to see it. But here's one of the clips. We'll show it to you now.
I believe that, again, as a child, every single one of these articles played an important role, a destructive role in my growing up.
Esther, I don't even know where to start with this. I thought they did a reasonably good job, but what do you make of these reenactments?
I mean, people online have been saying it's not Prince Harry, but Prince Barry, because of the nature of the reenactment. I think the theatre is the right way to describe it. And I mean, it seemed fairly accurate in the way that Prince Harry was trying to pull at the heartstrings or tug at the heartstrings of the judge in this particular case. But unfortunately, that's not how a courtroom works. A courtroom works as, based on facts and not your feelings. And unfortunately, linking these newspaper articles that he had a problem with to the kind of detrimental effect it had on him and his childhood and growing up and his relationship with Chelsea, that doesn't really hold up in court. You really have to kind of prove what you're saying, which is why I'm surprised this case has even gotten this far. Bear in mind, he has other cases against other newspapers as well that are pending. So he really thinks he's sort of a one-man band trying to bring down what he thinks is really unacceptable behavior by many newspaper outlets here in the UK. And it'll be interesting to see whether he'll succeed in that. But that reenactment was certainly very accurate.
It certainly was, and I wonder where those actors will head to. Now, will they forever be portrayed as Prince Harry? We will find out. Now, the interesting part about this, Esther, I guess, how do you think that the royal family would feel with Harry back in London once again, complaining again? It's been quite a big week for the working royals. They've attended a number of charity events, but the spotlight again is on Harry.
Yes, particularly because Harry spent twice as much time, attending this court case as he did his own father's coronation. So that also has, grabbed the headlines. But I think the royal family are kind of used to this by now. The last few years have just been one Sussex story after the other. The reality is there will be no shortage of royal engagements by the active working members of the royal family. And they know that this is just par for the course. They're not going to stop what they're doing just because, Harry is making the headlines. That's what duty is. You have to just get on with it regardless of what happens. So I think the royal family are okay with it. Obviously, it's not very nice to have, the fifth in line to the throne testifying in court. I mean, he's the first royal to do this in over 120 odd years. But it's now par for the course with the Sussexes, really. And I don't think they're particularly surprised by it. I think they're just getting on with the job, as they should.